Oh my gosh, that is the White House.
We're back
in Washington, D.C. Dude, I haven't been here for 6 years. And I'll tell you what, if you're gonna start your morning somewhere in America, it should be by the White House, the official residence of the President of the United States of America. Burned down in 1814 by the British, reopened in 1817, then completely closed and gutted from 1948 to 1952 while Harry Truman was in office. It is one crazy sight to behold. This is as close as we could get today. Here on the other side of Lafayette Square, they got all the streets closed around the White House. Not sure if there's an event going on or what, but there's this little area right here where we can catch a peek, which is good because this is Allie's first time ever setting her eyes on the White House. Look at all these fun pics. Fun for the whole family. That is crazy. What a beginning. Dude, it's crazy walking around Washington, D.C. and seeing plaques about the former homes of U.S. presidents and first ladies. Just walking the same streets that Madison and Jefferson walked. John Adams. I was gonna say Obama and Reagan and people like that, but I realized by their time, they probably weren't doing a lot of walking around. See the Washington Monument in the distance here. We were trying to get another angle on the White House. As you can see, Pennsylvania Avenue all closed off. It's just back there behind the trees. But I think we already got as close as we're going to get. Luckily, there's a lot more to see in Washington, D.C. than just the White House. You got the Washington Monument. You got memorials all over town. The Smithsonian. There's even plaques all over the sidewalk here as we're walking down. Little historical plaques. Look at this. There's the U.S. Capitol down there, down at the end of Pennsylvania Avenue. Dude, back over here behind us, that's the U.S. Treasury Department building right there. And just in the background between that and the trees, you can see a little sliver of the White House. And speaking of the White House, would you look at the size of this line to get inside on the tours. Look at this beautiful, huge building over here, the U.S. Commerce Department. It's nice to see that my taxes go for something. Anyway, as I was saying, there's a lot to see here, and luckily all of it is walking distance. I mean, it's not super close together, but if you got the stamina, pretty easy to see most of the major sites on foot, at least at a glance, which is all we're after today because we only have one day here in Washington, D.C. It's not the primary reason we're here on the East Coast, but it was just as convenient to fly into D.C. last night as it was to fly into anywhere else, and so here we are staring at the south lawn of the White House up there. Dude, that is awesome. It's our first time ever seeing it. It's crazy that it's real, right?
I know.
I remember in 8th grade coming here for the first time and thinking, oh my gosh, it's real. Bill Clinton is in there. Abraham Lincoln lived in that house. Oh, and speaking of Abraham Lincoln, we've crossed Constitution Avenue here. We're standing by the Washington Monument. I can see the Jefferson Memorial off this way, which means we've reached the National Mall over here, and if we just head down a little ways to the west, just a little bit further, we'll reach the Lincoln Memorial. Look at this along the way, built in 1837. It's the oldest structure on the National Mall. It's the lock keeper's house. Lock meaning like locks for canals, I believe, not meaning like the keeper of the keys. Looks like it's been beautifully restored by the National Park Service. I love stuff like that. Look at that, and here's a view of that house along the wharf back in the day. That is crazy. It's all been filled in now. Well, most of it anyways. Look at this beautiful duck pond over here. Look at this island, and look at this person right there. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag. All right, we're getting closer because there is the Vietnam War Memorial. There's also a little memorial to the 8 women who died in the Vietnam War. See here a lady holding a little bit of pressure onto this wounded soldier. I've never seen this before. Ah yes, behold, through the trees we have come. There's a little bit of construction, but that's okay. It's the Lincoln Memorial. Dude, the back of every penny and every $5 bill has got a picture of this on it. As you can see, during the construction, they've built this temporary accessible ramp to get up to Lincoln. He is right up there inside of those columns. And then look across the way. Look at Lincoln's view of the reflecting pool, the Washington Monument, and the U.S. Capitol. The capital of the Union that Abraham Lincoln saved. Also the site of a very famous scene from Forrest Gump where Jenny starts going through the water right there. Forrest! By the way, I think 7 out of the 8 or 9 times I've been to Washington, D.C., there has been no water in that reflecting pool, so I am stoked that there's actually water in there today. But I am much more stoked, as Allie just put it, like Jimmy Stewart and Mr. Smith goes to Washington to ascend the steps into the Lincoln Memorial. All right, look at that. We are getting closer to old Honest Abe. There are 36 columns here representing the 36 states of the Union at the time of Lincoln's presidency. You can see the names of those 36 states up here above the columns. Wow. You're supposed to be quiet and very dignified on the inside of the memorial, but on the left side of Lincoln, you have quotes symbolizing emancipation, Lincoln's role in ending slavery. On the right, you have quotes about unity, about bringing the North and the South of the country back together. The Gettysburg Address is inscribed up in this temple to Lincoln, this temple to the Union and the great emancipator. And then inside is the statue of the man himself, 19 feet tall. Of course, he's sitting in front of a wall that is 60 feet high, which makes him look much smaller, but that's the whole point, right? It's supposed to represent authority, but also humility. And there he is. Look at this. We meet again, Mr. Lincoln. A lot of times I've been in here and everybody is pretty silent, pretty reverent. Today it's a little more rambunctious, a little noisier. I didn't know if we'd be able to sort of talk in here or not. There it is. And then look what it says right above him. In this temple, as in the hearts of the people for whom he saved the Union, the memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined forever. 19 feet tall, but like I said, a 60-foot high ceiling over here makes Lincoln look large but humble. Large and small at the same time. It is cool to be back in here. There you go. There's the Gettysburg Address inscribed into the south wall of the Lincoln Memorial to memorialize his role in emancipation and carrying forward the message of the Declaration of Independence, something the United States had not yet lived up to, that all men are created equal. On the other wall, the message of unity that Abraham Lincoln always stood for. It is his second inaugural address, March 1865. End of it is probably the best part. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds. Just absolutely beautiful words. Nobody could put it quite like Abraham Lincoln. I have a very hard time not getting emotional, especially when it comes to anything to do with Abraham Lincoln. So I'm going to focus on this instead. Look at this. The gift shop is all boarded up. Doing a lot of construction here. See back there in the other corner, kind of every corner of the place has a little bit going on. But the main attraction, of course, is Lincoln himself. Born the 12th of February in 1809. Still remembered today by people from literally all over the world. It's a beautiful thing, America. There's very little that I love more. All right, well, we've paid our respects to our 16th president. Now let us descend the marble staircase and head across the mall toward the Capitol. Now, it may not look like it because it's cloudy today, but it is awfully warm, so quick Gatorade stop here. By the way, the Lincoln Memorial, also very famously the site of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Martin Luther King Jr., I should say. Really, I should say the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Look at Allie's little Daiso fan here that she got. Whew. Anyway, we're going to head up towards the Smithsonian Museum, so I'm going to walk along the reflecting pool here for a little ways. Crazy, the reflecting pool is 2,029 feet long, nearly half a mile. Built, A, because it looks good, but also to inspire tranquil reflection, which it certainly does, and also provides a home for all of these ducks down here. All right, well, we've made it to the far end of the reflecting pool here, and now down at the far side of the reflecting pool from the Lincoln Memorial is this, the World War II Memorial. Abraham Lincoln's Memorial was dedicated in 1922, or I think that's when it opened. The Washington Monument, I think, was finished in 1888, something close to that. The World War II Memorial, whose two sides reflect the two theaters of war, so that's the Pacific over there, and this is the Atlantic Theater, with little monuments for all of the different states that participated in the war effort. Opened up in 2004, April of 2004, as a matter of fact, and I happen to know that because I was here just a few days after the big opening ceremony, on tour with my band, The Scarred. And it was great because there were still so many veterans that were here for the dedication and the sort of opening ceremonies. All these World War II veterans taking pictures with people like they were celebrities. Look at this, we're on the Atlantic side. And here's the Minnesota memorial right here. You have the wreath and everything. And my uncle Lou Chumich from Minnesota was a tank commander in Germany. He had some amazing stories about seeing General Patton, all this kind of stuff. And his unit was, you know, liberating Europe and then guarding concentration camps after they were liberated. Definitely has some like funny stories, but also some very serious and very sad stories. And even in his 90s, he would choke up and could barely talk about some of it. Tried to read this out loud on camera 3 times and I can't without choking up. So there you go, you can read that yourselves. Okay, then over here in the Pacific Theater, we've got the other half of the states and the US territories that participated in the war effort. And my mom's dad, my grandpa, Philip Finazzo, served in the Pacific Theater. He was on the USS Neches, so an oil tanker in the Pacific. I think for all of us that grew up with the remnants of that greatest generation, right, with a lot of World War II veterans, for us, it's a very, very meaningful, solemn place. Whew, getting a little emotional over here. My eyes a little sweaty with respect. Thank goodness I have sunglasses on. All right, moving on to something a little less fresh. It's the Washington Monument. Before I get to it though, I should say, or should mention, that each one of these memorials has a lot of little smaller statues and inscriptions. Look at this, you can see all the different seals of the various military departments. Each one of these could be a whole video about who designed it and the symbolism and when it was dedicated and the stories behind their construction. With just one day, it's hard to tell you everything, and I am planning on coming back, but I've been planning on coming back since I was here last in 2019, and if the following year taught us anything, it is to never take your time for granted. So if we're only here for one day, we might as well look around and see what we can see, discuss what we can discuss while we're here. But all right, the Washington Monument, dedicated of course to George Washington, the founding father, the first president of the United States of America, general of the Continental Armies. I mean, if you had to narrow it down to one founding father, he is the one. First in war, first in peace, first in the hearts of his countrymen. I think the monument did open in 1888, but the stone obelisk was completed in 1884. And notoriously, speaking of construction, I don't know how easy it is to tell on camera and in this lighting, but you will notice that the upper portion and the lower portion down here are actually made of 2 different colors of marble. And that's because there was a long pause in construction, mostly during the Civil War, but it actually started a little bit before that. You know how those government projects are with the funding and whatnot. The original stone at the bottom here was quarried in Maryland, I believe in a town called Texas, Maryland. And when they paused construction in 1854, of course, the Civil War came just a few years later. And during the Civil War, the quarry was abandoned and apparently it flooded. And by the time construction resumed in 1879, they actually went to a different quarry to complete the top. I think most of it came from Massachusetts, although not all of it. And after the Civil War, clearly the priority was just to get the monument finished at all costs, and stone matching was not as much of a priority. Dude, but this thing is absolutely gargantuan. 555 feet tall. That is 111 alleys standing on top of each other. Dude, 111 alleys. That is one huge obelisk. It is nearly 890 steps to get to the top of this thing. You can ascend to the top. We're not gonna do that today. But I did want to mention that although George Washington was deceased by the time they dedicated this memorial and did the groundbreaking on it, James K. Polk was here, I'm pretty sure, President Polk. And the Masons are the ones that laid the cornerstone, because famously George Washington was a Freemason. And George Washington was in fact here in Washington, D.C. to dedicate the Capitol, to lay the cornerstone, wearing his Masonic regalia. Ooh, Illuminati stuff. Man, these stones are a lot bigger up close. When you're standing far away, they just look like a bunch of little bricks. But as you can see, these things are pretty hefty. I'm not a small human being. See how big they are next to the tourists standing over there. And man, you have the best views from on top of this little hill over here, looking over towards the Lincoln Memorial. And if we turn to the right, we can just see the top of the White House there through the trees. And then coming around the other corner, obviously we have the Smithsonian buildings and the nation's capital, the actual U.S. Capitol building. There must be a stunning view from up there. I've never been to the top of the Washington Monument, but maybe next time, maybe next time. I love this. Allie's loving it. She loves America. Look at her. She's basking in the freedom here and the nice breeze that's finally blowing. A little humid out here in Washington, D.C. You see people are lined up here. They are going to ascend up into the top of the Washington Monument. Ah, look at this. We wouldn't have made it inside today anyways, unfortunately. All the signs with all the facts will tell you about the 889 steps it takes to get to the top, but we asked one of the dumbest questions you could possibly ask, like, is there an elevator? And there is an elevator. Good news. All right, well, we're hoping to make it all the way down to the Capitol today, but first, we have got to head inside of some of the Smithsonian buildings over here because Allie has never been here, and all of the best stuff in the nation is in those buildings, which actually is why you need to be careful, because they might not let you back out again. You are a national treasure, you. Now here's something they don't show you in the tourist videos, right? Right here, just at the side of the Washington Monument before you reach the Smithsonian's, the restrooms. It's one thing I love about Washington, D.C. Restrooms everywhere. Look at that souvenir stand over there. You can get Cheetos and a mug. Who would have thought? Abraham Lincoln would have never dreamed of getting Miss Vicky's chips, some Doritos, a couple of Gatorades, a couple souvenirs, some mugs. And look at that. Look at the Pepsi truck right in front of the Washington Monument. America, baby, that's how we do it. All right, we are making our way across the mall over to the National Museum of American History. Perfect. I'm so excited to be back in here. I can't even tell you. And the great thing about the museums here in Washington, D.C., unlike the ones in L.A., the few that we have, these museums are free. Ah, abierto. Oh no. We can't bring our weapons and firearms? Dang it. Now, the last time I was inside of here, I had a different camera that could see in the dark without emitting any light, and I got sort of look the other way permission to get footage of this. This is the Star-Spangled Banner, the actual flag from the War of 1812 that Francis Scott Key was looking at that inspired the song, the Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem. No photos allowed inside, but we gotta go take a look. I just don't want the light, like even from the phone screens or the little screen that you put your eye in a traditional camera. So go back to my last videos from Washington, D.C., and you'll see a rare clip of it. Beautiful. I had to demonstrate that my other camera emitted absolutely no light and everything, and the lady's like, well, if I don't see you, you know. Dude, I get so emotional in this building. So hard to talk after seeing the Star-Spangled Banner. Look at that. There's Clara Barton's ambulance right there. I mean, an amazing place. Let's head upstairs, see what we can see. Looks like up here some exhibits on art and industry. But look at this, the American presidency, a glorious bird, and also an exhibit about the first ladies. Oh my gosh, it's already amazing. George Washington's telescope, personally purchased to use in the war. Here's his portable writing case for his pens and inks. That's incredible. Here's some furniture and table settings and stuff used for George Washington's presidential mansion, which would have been in New York and Philadelphia. Ironically, George Washington never lived in Washington, D.C., although his house, Mount Vernon, is pretty close. We filmed there a couple years back. Look at this little reflector. I know it's like kind of flickering here, but George Washington used that little reflector there. He puts his candle and then used the reflector to reflect the light to write his farewell address. This is amazing. Look at this carriage right here. It was owned by Ulysses S. Grant. He rode this to his second inauguration here. Oh wow, or how about this? Grover Cleveland's overcoat and top hat. Hopefully we're going to see a much more famous top hat in just a couple of seconds in here. You can see just how many amazing artifacts are here from all of the U.S. presidents. That right there is the football from the Clinton administration. That is the thing to do the thing with the nukes. The football. Dwight D. Eisenhower's uniform. So cool, man. So stinking cool. One of Jackie Kennedy's outfits. Warren G. Harding's silk pajamas and slippers. Never thought I'd see Warren G. Harding's silk pajamas, that's for sure. Dude, there's a straw hat owned by Senator Henry Clay. Got a lot of chairs and things in here from the Capitol. Here's a little section on impeachment. And then look at this. To me, the most stunning artifact of them all. You always know when the lights get dimmer, the artifacts get better. That is Abraham Lincoln's top hat. That is absolutely incredible. This is the hat that Lincoln wore to Ford's Theater the night he was assassinated. It's just so hard to wrap your head around the fact that it was only 5 days after Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox. 5 days. Lincoln lived just long enough to see the war completed. And had he lived longer for Reconstruction and the reunification of the United States, we probably would have avoided a lot of the pain associated with the following 100 years, culminating in the Civil Rights Movement. But I don't know. That's what the fates had in store for our country. That is unbelievable, man. I've seen it before. I still can't wrap my head around it. Dude, this is crazy. It's been reupholstered. This is George Washington's bedside chair that he sat in right before climbing into bed and passing away. I mean, that is just amazing. Oh, and then here's Ronald Reagan. He was just talking to George Bush Sr. in here. So wild. You know, because we can think of them as real people. It is hard to imagine George Washington being a real person, even though I've been in his house, seen his chair. It's just so hard to wrap your mind around that. I want to keep saying that. It is hard to fathom. All right, moving into a sort of different part of history here. They're undergoing a lot of exhibit restorations and things like that. But look at this. We got the Dolby Hall of American Culture. Because if there's one thing America's good at, it is pop culture. Dude, and look at this. Right in the beginning. Freaking R2-D2 and C3. This is all I wanted to see when I came here in the 8th grade. And they weren't on display that time, and I was so... But I think C3PO's head was, but not this whole setup. This is amazing. That is so freaking cool. These are from Return of the Jedi, 1983, the same year I was born. Dude, how unbelievably sick is that? That is so awesome right there. The real C3PO from Return of the Jedi. We've gotten to know Chris Bartlett, the current C3PO. The man in the suit nowadays. Super nice guy. Never met Anthony Daniels though. Never met Anthony Daniels. Sorry, I can't get enough shots of R2 and 3PO. I didn't even get as many shots of Lincoln's top hats, but that's because I stood there for 10 minutes staring at it and weeping. Dude, they even have Dorothy's ruby slippers from 1939. Look, there's a little metal version that you can touch and feel what they feel like with all them sequins. But those are the original ruby slippers. How sick is that? Allie loves the Wizard of Oz. She had a Wizard of Oz themed birthday party when she was little. That explains all the ruby slippers merch we've been seeing at the gift shop. That is so amazing. Dude, there's so much amazing stuff in here. But this is absolutely one of the highlights for me. Look at that. It's Jim Henson's Muppets. That right there is Wilkins from Sam and Friends, one of Jim Henson's very first shows, which, by the way, was aired in the Washington, D.C. area. This is where he got his start in television. And there is Fozzie Bear. And I don't know if you noticed my shirt. I wore this Roosevelt's Muppet shirt just because I was hoping we would see some Muppets today. Oh, I love the Muppets. And by the way, if you've never seen Jim Henson's commercials, the commercial work he did in the early days of his career, they are hysterical, fantastic. Gosh, they got everything from Prince's guitars in here to one of the little suits from Breaking Bad. Some costumes worn by Asian American dancers. Got a little bit of Mae West. We have some baseball, some prize fighter stuff. I mean, just everything. Dude, look at this. Joe Louis's boxing gloves. Some musical instruments here, including the Grandmaster Flash's turntable. Paul Simon's guitar. Look, here's one of Selena's outfits right there. Incredible. It's just amazing the range of artifacts in here, including this, which I saw last time, Indiana Jones's whip. But it's now supplemented by the jacket and hat. If I'm reading this correctly, the jacket and hat are from Last Crusade. The whip, though, from 1981. So, most probably, Raiders. Maybe Temple of Doom. Either way, dude, that is Indiana Jones's freaking stuff. So hard to get a close-up without reflections on it. That is incredible. Last time I was here, Indiana Jones's whip was in a display case right next to Benjamin Franklin's cane. Interesting to see that they are now in different parts of the museum. Wow, dude, just... wow. Sorry for the flicker if you're seeing that. Oh my gosh, here's something I saw on my first trip to the Smithsonian in 1998. Archie Bunker's chair. What in the world? And look at this. Allie always finds the good stuff. More Muppets. Oh, look at that. You got some Mickey ears over there. Bert and Ernie are here from Sesame Street. Oh my gosh, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That's Mr. McFeely's outfit. And then right underneath it, that's a pair of Fred Rogers' shoes from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Right there. You have to have a couple of Disney artifacts. Howdy Doody is in here. Then right underneath him, speaking of puppetry, you've got Lamb Chop. Next to Bert and Ernie, you have Rosita. You got Susan's outfit from Sesame Street. And look at this. There's even some animation cells here, including Bugs and Daffy. And then look at SpongeBob SquarePants. Wow, and what do we have here? Is this Xena, Warrior Princess's outfit? Julie Newmar's gloves? Oh my gosh, I love Catwoman. Got the Guild, The Walking Dead, Star Trek Discovery. Just what an amazing, amazing room. Wow, even the manacles from Roots. It's just so wild. Just the breadth of stuff, you know. We're gonna make our way to a different part of the museum. We are, in fact, on a whirlwind tour. We gotta keep the whirlwind whirling. I just can't believe Wilkins is right there. R2 and 3PO. All right, looks like a lot of the other exhibits upstairs are under construction anyways, which is perfect. So we're gonna head all the way down now to the bottom. Wow, look at this downstairs. The Hall of Invention and Innovation. Looks like we got a bunch of other artifacts over here. We're looking for the cafe. I want to look in all of these exhibits, but it wouldn't do any good if we have a hangry alley. We want to avoid that at all costs. A hangry alley is a national tragedy. Oh, it's spooky in the basement, man. It's like visiting the back rooms a little bit. Gotta find the cafeteria. Definitely want to eat at America's table. Even in the cafeteria, look at these collections of historic lunch boxes. Amazing. I'm actually kind of amazed at the range of food they have. They have some Tex-Mex, they've got some barbecue. Look at this. Chicken strips. What's more American than chicken strips? Cherry Coke and some Doritos for me. Okay, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. The tray return, you just put your tray right there and it goes in the back. Amazing. I know that's not why most people come to the Smithsonian, but I was impressed. Dude, I mean, I wish Disneyland would do that. Disneyland has you sorting your own trash now. I do not know what this word means. Huh. But there is a lot of amazing money I have never seen before in here. Like, look at an old paper $50 or some shillings. American shillings? I always wonder if the first time we made green money, if people were like, green money? What are you thinking? What is this, lettuce? Exactly. Give me that lettuce. Last time I was here, they had the Batmobile downstairs. No Batmobile today. Look at this, though, heading towards the Hall of Transportation. Look at this steam locomotive right here. That is the John Bull from 1831, one of our first steam locomotives. Amazing. There's a whole exhibit there about lighting, something that you don't think of, but something very important. A lot of amazing old, rare automobiles down here. We got some motorcycles, even a Dodge Caravan in here. Is that Eric Estrada's motorcycle? Oh wow, this is amazing, dude. Trains, street cars, automobiles. It is just gorgeous. I mean, you're getting a good idea here as we just keep the camera rolling of just how sprawling all of these little side exhibits are. The Smithsonian's collections too are so vast. There's so much stuff in the vaults and behind the scenes. Every time I come here, the displays are totally different, especially like the smaller displays will all have completely different stuff in them. Look at this. Let's just keep going over here. Got school buses, they've got trailers, old motor course. Look at this, huge steam locomotives. You got cars from the 1930s and 40s. A little bit of information about Route 66. Little Grapes of Wrath action right there. Here's an old sign, an old neon sign from Route 66, aka the People's Highway. It's amazing in here, dude. There's so much, way too much to cover in one day. Wow, now if I could get my hands on a motorcycle like that, I would definitely learn to ride. Freaking unbelievable, dude, unbelievable. Look at this, first guy to drive a automobile across the country, Nelson Jackson. And don't forget Bud the Bulldog. Just endless, completely endless. Ooh, and this Zeppelin right here reminds me, we still have the Air and Space Museum to see, at least just for a second. It's just hard to even figure out how to get out of here now. Oh, there's a whole piece about Mississippi River steamboats with a Mark Twain quote on the wall. I need to come here and spend like a week just exploring this one building. It hurts my soul to know we're just passing by so many artifacts. Look at all these ship models here, and they definitely do not dodge some of the darker parts of American history. The slave ships and the Atlantic slave trade is definitely fully explored down here. We have the most amazing country, like the first country to be founded not on the divine rights of kings, but on principles. And it's just so unfortunate that our principles had some blind spots, to put it mildly. And yet we are always seeking to form a more and more perfect union. We've come a long way. Still a ways to go, but we've come a long way. All right, I think we're going to skip over the food exhibit, as much as I want to check that out. I think we just saw a different food exhibit in the basement that we're perfectly satisfied with. Gonna head up and out and check out some of the other Smithsonian buildings. Wait, actually, before we go, we're just gonna explore a little bit more, because there's the Hall of the American People and a democracy exhibit on the other side. So we're gonna see if there's any more like crazy artifacts to show you. Then we'll head out. A lot of artifacts, man, representing like every culture within the United States. Nothing else on the level of like Lincoln's top hat, though, you know. And the Hall of American Democracy, same thing, a lot of very interesting stuff, including an old powdered wig right at the beginning. We had to breeze through pretty quickly, couldn't look at everything. But this is definitely one of the more interesting exhibits. I'd love to spend time like actually reading everything, you know? Like, look at these things that people used to carry in processions for elections or 4th of July and stuff. Crazy. A lot of artifacts from various presidential campaigns and stuff. Like, look at this. Housewives for Nixon. Sweet. He's got your vote. Pretty awesome. Overwhelming, though. Whew. Anyway, since we didn't want a Smithsonian spirit jersey, so we've come back outside to cross the mall where they're having America's Farmers Market out here, or the Great American Farmers Market, something like that. I think they're still setting up at the moment. And we're gonna head towards the National Air and Space Museum. Look at this along our path, though. It is the National Museum of Natural History. This is where they got all the dinosaur bones and whatnot. I've actually never been in here before. I mean, I've seen Night at the Museum too, but I've never been inside for real. Oh, man. Where did they dig up that old fossil? Crazy seeing all these prehistoric animals. Like, what in the heck is that? A mastodon? Oh, yes, in fact it is. And then best of all, the dinosaurs. Not just any dinosaurs, American dinosaurs.
Heck yeah, brother, heck yeah.
Dude, would you look at the size of those things? Woo-hoo-hoo. Dang. Dude, this place is so crazy, and I'm using that word very intentionally, because imagine if nobody knew what the Smithsonian was and you try to explain, I went to this town and I saw Abraham Lincoln's top hat, and then I saw dinosaur bones, and I saw Dorothy's ruby slippers, and I saw C-3PO. I swear it was real. It was all real. All right, as we make our way through the Smithsonian buildings, we are getting closer and closer to the U.S. Capitol, where we're ultimately going to end up, and we better get a move on. We better get there quickly, because one, we're getting sore, and two, we have a long way to drive tonight. This is cool, though, worth mentioning. This was built in 1847. I think it opened in 1855. It's the castle, the original Smithsonian Institution building. Got the Washington Monument on our right, the Natural History Museum behind us. There's Allie. There's the U.S. Capitol over there, where important stuff is theoretically going on. I'm just looking now at how far that is. It's still so far. Making a zigzag here because I completely forgot about the National Archives Museum over here. And Allie and I, of course, came to DC to steal the Declaration of Independence. No, to see the Declaration of Independence. And it is right back here. And I heard from my good friend George, who was just here a couple of weeks ago, that now they actually let you record and take pictures in there. Something they did not let you do, let me tell you, in 1998. The first time I came here and I saw those important documents. But it's one thing to know the Declaration of Independence existed as a piece of paper. It is another thing to actually see it and see the signatures on it, and then to look at the 1789 Constitution of the United States of America. I mean, incredible. All right, dude, there it is. The Archives of the United States of America. I first came in here in junior high, and right at the foot of those steps, I bought myself a pair of bootleg knockoff Oakley sunglasses. I had a little brown beanie and my little alien-looking Oakleys, and I thought I was the bee's knees, dude. I didn't think I could get any cooler, and I was right. I really haven't gotten any cooler, unfortunately. Just doing a little jaywalking. Nothing wrong with that, right? It's not like there's any law enforcement in this town. Right, right, look, someone's selling some bootleg stuff right there. Maybe get a new pair of Oakleys. Maybe I could be cool again. Oh, no, he's just selling bootleg red hats. Dude, look at this incredible building. Absolutely amazing. We used to be a proper country, dude. We used to be able to build some really good looking stuff. Now all we build is Taco Bell. Uh-oh, I hope we can get in. Didn't even think of this, the ticketed entry, timed tickets to enter. Well, we'll see if it's possible. If not, we can always come back again. Look at that building. Look at the size of it. Absolutely incredible. I think they built this building in the 30s, dude. So we were still making rad stuff back then. Hoover Dam, stuff like this. Whew. All right, we made it past security. I love signs like this. We're just headed towards the rotunda. I believe we got to go upstairs. And instead of taking the elevator, let's actually take the stairs. Look at these beautiful stairs. I think our grandparents' tax money paid for these stairs. Instant regret. Should have took the elevator. Ah. All right, we're going in to the rotunda. Again, I haven't been here since the 8th grade. This is wild. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So I've never seen anything like this, except for like in Paris or London or other great cities. It's nice to know that we have things like this in the United States. The Roman architecture, and of course, our founding documents are right in here. This is awesome. Dude, the Declaration of Independence is right there. The US Constitution. These are like climate-controlled vaults, and the documents will actually descend down into the actual vaults beneath our feet at night. I mean, this is crazy. Dude, that is it right there. It's a little faded. That is the Declaration of Independence. There are multiple copies in here, but that's incredible. So faded. So important, though. Never faded from our hearts. Oh, it is so hard to read the signatures, and of course the light is very, very dim in here for good reason. You don't want this to fade farther than it already has. Or I guess I should have said further than it already has. Yeah, they got some more stuff right here and other copies of the Constitution, the Declaration. Let's see if we can get up to this one, dude, and there it is. We, the people of these United States. It is the Constitution. This is our real founding document. This is the source of our freedom, our liberty. Look at that, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4. Amazing, including the Bill of Rights. Literally, our rights come from this rotunda. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look at the signatures on the Constitution. And then right next to it, the Bill of Rights. Oh my gosh. I know it's dim, I know the lights are probably flickering a bit, and it's very hard to see. But that is it right there. The first amendments to our Constitution, including the amendment that allows me to say whatever weird thing I want to on the internet. So I owe my entire life to that document right there. Basically, when you come in here, although they say you don't have to line up, you can go to any open space, most people do line up and read about the sort of formation of the Declaration of Independence, like how it all came about. And then the actual declaration is right over here in this little vault thingy. Then you come over here under the center area, and that is the Constitution, the actual Constitution of the United States. And then right over to the right are the first amendments to it, which is our Bill of Rights, and then some information about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's all packed into this one room. I know we're doing a little whirlwind thing. Next time I'll bring a better camera. We'll be able to see it a little better, I hope. But that gives you some idea that you can come to Washington, D.C. and for free. Look, we walked right in. We didn't need time tickets or anything. You can come see these amazing documents. There are way more documents in this building, in this museum, but this is the main thing, right? It's like when you go to the Louvre and you just run to see the Mona Lisa. That's pretty much what we just did, the American equivalent. I had to put the glasses on, dude. My eyes were getting sweaty with respect. And then Allie kept looking at me because I was tearing up in there. It's not my fault. A duck flew by and spit in my eye. So amazing, man. Allie was like, "Well, haven't you seen it before?" It's like, yeah, in 8th grade. I didn't appreciate it in 8th grade, you know. Now I have seen 49 of our 50 states. I've been in every single contiguous state in the Union, the lower 48. I've met thousands and thousands of people in this country. I know for a fact that this is a great nation, a great land full of amazing people. I've also since read literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of history books. I know a lot more than I did when I was 13, believe it or not. Whew, okay, I'm okay now. I'm all right. Allie is, of course, stoked to see our founding documents as well, but she is also stoked because of National Treasure. She's like, we can see the Declaration like Nicolas Cage. I'm actually really surprised that they have National Treasure merch in here. That's kind of cool. They just embraced it. They leaned into it. Oh, look at this. It says Nicolas Cage paid $35, but you can get this special edition Declaration of Independence replica with secret code on the back for 50% less. Dude, I'm not going to lie. Washington, D.C. has some killer merchandise. Look at that. You can get plush Obama or get yourself a Reagan bust. Well, Nancy. That's me doing a bad impersonation of Adam DeWoo's bad Reagan impersonation. Actually, his isn't that bad. Mine is really bad. Oh, national parks. I like that. Okay, that is cool. I would love to explore all of the sick merch in DC. There's so much of it. Like, look at this. You can buy yourself a replica of the president's desk. The Resolute desk. But if you'd like to see that, I need to come back. So I need more of you to join me over on Patreon or check out my sick merch at randomland.com. Okay, there's my little plug. We'll keep going now. All right, well, our feet are getting a little sore, but we have crossed back across the National Mall, once again getting closer to the Capitol and closer to the end of this adventure. But first we had to come over here, the National Air and Space Museum. One, it's on our way anyways, and two, there's something spectacular in here I have to see again. Ooh, if we can get in. There's a heck of a line going on over here. There cannot be a longer line for this huge museum than there was for the National Archives. And there? Well, stood in line for worse things. Let me see how long it'll take. I am so confused now. Last time I came here, the last 10 times I came here, I just walked right in. So what in the world? No, I just wanted to see the Starship Enterprise. Wait a minute. Allie works some internet magic. She's a hacker. She got us the timed entry for 3. Well, we made it in. Allie somehow got timed entry tickets for this very hour. I guess they were doing a bunch of renovation on the museum since the last time I was here, and since they've done that, it's become more popular, and as they reopen the galleries, there's less space. So they're doing timed entry. But once again, we just walked right in. Things are good. We did have to wait in that line, but it moved really fast. As you can see, there are jets and moon landers and Soviet missiles apparently up here. But the main thing I wanted to see, again, was this. The filming model of the original Starship Enterprise. All kinds of reflection on this glass right here. I wish it was hanging somewhere without the glass, just so you could see it a little bit better. But I don't even care. Seeing it at all is amazing. Every hour on the hour, this thing lights up for 5 minutes, but no longer than that, so it has time to cool back down. It doesn't melt the plastic or anything. We just missed the hour because of that security line out there. So we're not gonna see it light up, but it does light up, and believe me, it is fantastic. You watch any documentary about Star Trek, the original series, and you will find that all of the astronauts working out in the field today, and a lot of the early astronauts, were hugely inspired by the show. It had a lot of real world effects beyond just being entertaining, dude. Star Trek is amazing. If you've never watched Star Trek, I highly recommend it. It might take a while to get in, you know. It's an acquired taste for some, but it's a taste I think anyone could acquire if you enter at the right point. Yeah, like the films, like Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, all that stuff. Oh, so amazing. Next Generation is some people's special flavor, or Deep Space Nine. I'll always love the original series. I didn't start with the original series. I started with the original series movies. That was my introduction to Star Trek. Although Next Generation was on TV and I saw some of it, I'm like, hey, there's the Reading Rainbow guy. Star Trek, the original series, man, and there it is, the original USS Enterprise. Oh, so cool. So many look at all these screens are reflecting. Get that screen off right here. To get a good view. Super hard to get a good view, but you get the idea. This thing is 12 feet long, if I remember correctly. Absolutely massive. Obviously, they graduated towards smaller filming models, 4 or 5 feet, more coffee table size stuff, and now they can do it with really tiny ones, like this big in some cases, if they use models at all, because of course now we have computer-generated images. That's what makes the original so special, though, was not computer-generated. This thing right here, this is real. I feel like you could almost ride on that thing. All right, well, there's no way we're gonna leave without seeing something slightly more historical in the history of flight. After all, it's Allie's first time here, and who knows when she'll ever come back. Just inside of this exhibit, ooh, a Wright Brothers bicycle right there. It's the Wright Flyer. This is the actual Orville and Wilbur Wright Flyer. Built and flown in 1903. The fabric, obviously, on the Wright Flyer had to be replaced back in the 1980s, which really, if you think about it, isn't that long ago. It lasted a long time. But as for the rest of it, the wood, the metal, the wire even, this is the original Wright Flyer, the actual first aircraft in which man took to the skies successfully. That is crazy. We flew here from LA. That would not have been possible without those two bicycle repair brothers. Also, something that never really occurs to me watching the History Channel or something like that, but standing here in front of this thing, it occurs to me in a big way. Even if you didn't get up all that high, this thing would be terrifying to ride in. Being up in the air with nothing but balsa wood and wire and a big metal engine right next to you. Like, even if you crashed from 5 feet up, that would hurt badly. These fellas had some cojones. Look at that. They started with little gliders over here and then achieved the first powered flight in a 1903 Wright Flyer. It's weird that they never came up with a name for it even after the fact. Like, they didn't name it the Kitty Hawk or this or that or the other thing. Just the Wright Flyer. That's what it is. What it has been and what it ever shall be. They also have the 1909 Wright Military Flyer, literally the world's first military aircraft. Okay, we're nearing the end of our adventure just because we've got to hit the road pretty soon. I was about to leave the building, but then I saw this. We don't have time to do a whole thing here as much as I might want to. But look at this. All this aviation history, historic planes, the Wright Flyer, and then an X-Wing. I believe this is a sequel trilogy X-Wing right here, but look at that. It's got R2-D2 up there. What in the J.J. Abrams? I couldn't find a sign or a plaque or anything, but I assume that's one of the props they used in England when they were filming the sequel trilogy, like some of the Rebel bases or something like that, Resistance bases. I mean, it is crazy. They got the Wright Flyer, they got the Spirit of St. Louis in here, and then you turn around, there's a freaking giant X-Wing. Just unbelievable, dude. From Charles Lindbergh to Poe Dameron. All right, we gotta get out of here before I discover some other sci-fi props. Side note before we leave, we definitely went to the moon. Spike. Otherwise, explain how the Apollo 11 got so beat up, huh? Guy thinks we didn't go to the moon. Don't hate on the moon, man. The moon rocks. All right, we're out. We're out of here, guys. We gotta go. All right, we made it out. We've done well over 20,000 steps today. Allie is regretting her shoe choice. They were chosen for aesthetics, not for comfort, but we are almost at the end of our journey. Not the end of the trip, but the end of today's video. All right, it was a long day and a lot of walking, but we at least made it to the reflecting pool in front of the U.S. Capitol. Getting closer is going to have to wait for another day. We got pretty darn close last time. That's where all the presidential inaugurations are held, except for Lincoln's, which was on the other side. Last time I was here, we went to the Supreme Court. We did all kinds of stuff. And next time, I plan on doing a lot of crazy stuff as well. But Allie's phone just bit the dust. It just died. My phone is dying. This camera is dying. We've done a lot. We've seen a lot. It's going to take forever to edit. And we have a long way to drive north, up through and out of Maryland. We'll see you guys on the other side. Don't forget all those links I was talking about earlier. Randomland.com. You can find them all there. You can help us fund those future adventures. But I really appreciate you just watching, liking, maybe sharing with a friend. That's free. Either way, until next time, we've all done our duty. It's time to go home and sleep well. Try not to cry.
I am Sasquatch, and if you enjoyed these episodes, please help us make more by joining our Patreon or sharing and liking the video. Those are free. Or you can check out our merch store, randomland.com.